Hi, everybody. It's Ada Davis. And I'm going live today because I just got finished watching the first episode of When They See Us. And before I watched it, I went on record and I said that I have no doubt that the only right these children needed to know was the right to remain silent. Now, I've already gotten some pushback from people saying that these were kids, they had no concept of their rights and things like that. But the fact of the matter is that at some point in time, there was a parent or an older sibling, somebody else in the room, except for the 16-year-old. I don't remember seeing an episode where he was ever allowed to see his parent. But by the time your child reaches 16, especially if you have a young black man, they should know to invoke their right to remain silent. Because it's the only right you need to have down to avoid the kind of thing that happened in Central Park 5. And we can do all the community symposiums and you can do all of the meetings and community activism and let's teach our children their rights and all of that. But what you should be paying attention to in that episode is how they overcame the will of those children, the will of parents. First, I'm not even going to address the parents who wanted to go to work, the parents who were telling their children to tell them what they want to hear and all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to leave that for parents to weigh in on. But as an attorney who has done criminal law for years, I will tell you that Ava DuVernay gave you a master class in how people plead guilty to crimes they did not commit. She did not make that up. The courts allow the police to use trickery, deceit, intimidation, anything short of being hit. All of the beating up on these children, beating up on people they were calling suspects, no, that's not allowed. But the intimidation, the questioning them, all of this kind of stuff, they're allowed to do that to a certain extent. So you need to teach your children not only that they have the right to remain silent, but how to not be tricked into giving up that right. How to not be tricked into surrendering that right. They should have information. They should all know to say, call my mom, call my dad, call my guardian, and speak to their attorney. And if the police continue to tell them that they can't reach him or they can't find him, then they can just invoke their right to remain silent and sit there. It really is what children need to be taught. Because what I have seen in my experience, hi Crystal, how are you? But what I have seen in my experience is that people say what they want the police to hear because they want to either get out of it or they think it's going to help them in some way, or they're trying to get home faster. That is a famous one. Trying to get home faster. If you're a woman, they'll tell you if you don't tell them what they want to hear, your children are going to go into foster care. There's a line for every demographic that they use. Children will let you go home. Mothers, we're going to take your kids. There's always a line that they use to try and get you to answer questions and waive your rights. And it's just a matter of not doing that. So if you want to help prevent this from happening again, don't have a conversation. Have a demonstration. If I had children in this age group, I would honestly find a retired police officer. I would invite them to my home and I would have them interrogate my child. That's what I would do. I would have them interrogate my child and give my child the experience of being intimidated and bullied and pushed around, like they would actually get by a police officer, and teach them how to respond in that situation. Because a casual conversation on the couch is not going to prepare them for what happens when a police officer or other law enforcement officials come down and try and pressure them. And honestly, I think that goes for anyone, not just teenagers, but adults. I have seen people 19, 20 years old 30, 35 years old. They think they're going to trick the police into believing something. They think they're going to explain to the police that's going to convince them that that their story is right. And it never happens. I have rarely seen a situation where a person has been able to convince the police that they're right. So if I had a child of any age who I was worried would encounter the police, I would do a demonstration like you see in the video. I would do a demonstration and have the children, hey, Elrico, glad you're here. It is a good idea, right? Because it's real. I've talked to criminal clients before, and some of them spontaneously confess because of the intimidation, because they don't want something worse to happen. So the pressure of being in that situation, and that's what cops are trained to do, right? They're trained to create these high intense situations so that you get thrown off of your game. The difference is they're trained. You're not. Your kids definitely are not, right? So train them. Train your children how to resist someone overbearing their will and invoking their right to remain silent. It's the best thing you can do. No lectures, no symposiums, none of that. Do some real demonstrations. Find a retired law enforcement officer and have a demonstration. Because I've had far too many of my clients that have confessed guilty or innocent. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter how you feel about what you did. The point is that it's important for you to know your right and how to invoke it. But especially if you're innocent. Listen, if you're innocent, don't try and convince them that you're innocent. Invoke your right to remain silent and understand that the police are not going to just take it and walk away. That's what frustrates me about this idea that you can just teach them their rights and that'll be it. I had a case maybe 2 years ago. A young black man, he was 18 or 19 years old. He was at home by himself with his younger siblings. The police came to his house, banged on the door, demanded that he open it. He would not open it. They continued to bang on the door. They were scaring his siblings so bad, he decided he was just going to leave and walk away because he knew he had the right to walk away and not answer questions. So he tried to walk out of the house and go about his business, and they stopped him. Ultimately, he wound up thrown to the ground, and then they accused him of assaulting a police officer. So we had to go to trial, wherein the detectives who threw him to the ground testified and said, yeah, he has the right not to answer questions, but I don't have to leave him alone. So yeah, you have the right to remain silent, but don't think that the police have to respect that right. You have to learn how to make them respect that right. And it doesn't have to be a belligerent defiance. The simple invocation of your rights, the simple phrase, I am invoking my right to remain silent. I would like to speak to an attorney. That's all you have to say. In that tone, over and over and over, until they get the point that you're not going to say anything. And then once you're represented by an attorney, you can have the conversation and understand what's actually going on. Because what you'll come to find out is that the police will not back off. If they have a crime like the one in Central Park 5, and I mean, think about it. If you were the victim, you would want the police going hard to find the person who did it. So if you're not the person who did it, then you need to take the opportunity. Don't take the opportunity to try and convince them. You don't get mad at them for trying to find the person who did it. You didn't do it. So just don't say anything. Invoke your right to remain silent. There has been far too many times when people have been, particularly black men, have been arrested and accused, quote unquote, of fitting the description, right? So if you know you didn't do it, then I recommend that you just don't say anything at all. your right to remain silent will save you a lot of headache on the tail end. They might arrest you anyway. They might yell at you anyway. They might try to intimidate you and try and overbear your will anyway. They might even leave you sitting in a cell somewhere overnight and not call your mother or your lawyer. But in the end, if you invoke your right to remain silent, then you can avoid having that confession, right? Because what did the Central Park Five have? What did the prosecutors have against them? Fake confessions. They had these fake confessions that these kids were browbeaten into giving. That was the whole case. So if they had remained silent, then there would have been no case. Alrico says, true story. I was in the 7th or 8th grade at Harding Middle School, and Mr. Watson had a scared straight day. We went to the thin 16th precinct across from Redford High. They booked us and took us through the process. Then we went to the jail and the morgue. That was enough for me to not be about that life. I know that's right, Alrico. It really does require a better understanding of what is going to happen. Because you know what I found when I'm representing young men? Hey, Jackie. Hey, cuz. Glad you're here. Hi, Mike. What I found when I'm representing young black men is that they think they know the system. So even if they're innocent, even if they didn't do anything, they think they can talk their way out of it. And history has shown us that that's just not true. So you have to let them see the reality. You have to let them see the truth. Scared straight. That's right. Absolutely. Scare them out of trying to convince the police that they're right, from trying to take matters into their own hands. Because that's something else I saw in this episode. It was the children, these young people making decisions as teenagers, saying, okay, I'm going to lie because the police told me if I lie, then I'll go home, or something better will happen to me, or I'll have a better outcome. And you just can't, you teach your children that, don't teach them that police aren't trustworthy. That's not the lesson of this video. But teach them that they cannot beat the system, that they cannot advocate for themselves, as well as a licensed attorney or an informed parent can advocate for them. You need someone on your side when you have your child or yourself in a situation where the police are coming at you as hard as these police were coming at these young men. So that's my soapbox. I knew when I watched it, I knew before I even turned it on that I was going to be so frustrated, because it bugs me to no end. There's always the whole idea that we try and help, and right, I guess it's a reasonable response. When someone accuses you of something, you want to defend yourself. You want to tell them what really happens. You want to tell them the truth. But when they come back at you and it becomes clear that they're not believing you, if you're in the street, you just say, you know what? Whatever, believe what you want to believe. And you walk away, right? You don't try and convince them. You don't spend your time trying to tell them you don't tell them what they want to hear. You say, all right, you know what? Never mind. So teach your children that. Their never mind is I invoke my right to remain silent. So that's my 2 cents on the first episode. I don't know if I want to watch the rest because I know it's going to make me angry. Not at the railroading, and that does upset me. Don't get me wrong. That does make me mad. But we got to do better. We got to do better. Teach your kids. They know the rights, but teach them how to use them. We all know the rules, but do we know how to invoke them? So that's my 2 cents. Thanks for listening to my soapbox, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.